Hi biology students, Mr. Yonker here, and we're going to continue our ecology unit by looking at community ecology, which is all about the relationships between organisms. In order for us to understand the relationships between organisms, we need to understand the levels of organization first, and so we look first at species, which are all the organisms that are able to breed and produce fertile offspring in nature. We have populations, which are groups of the same species that live at the same area and the same time. We have communities, which are all the different populations, of course, different species that live in the same area. We have ecosystems, which are all the living, the biotic, and the non-living, abiotic, things that live in the same area. And we have groups of ecosystems, that's biomes, that have the same climate and similar dominating communities. A good example of that where we live would be a northern biome, which is all of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North and South Dakota. And then, of course, the biosphere, which is the part of the planet where life exists. Since ecology is all about relationships, a community is all the living organisms and their relationships in a particular area, and these organisms, they interact constantly and they have a powerful impact on the ecosystem. A community has many different relationships. The ones that we're going to look at in this presentation are going to be competition, predation, symbiosis, mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Every ecosystem has a limited amount of resource, whether that is food, water, or simply the space where the organisms live. Competition occurs when organisms of the same or different species try to use that resource at the same place at the same time because they know that the resource is going to run out. A resource simply refers to anything that is required for life for the organisms to live, to survive. And resources include food, water, light, nesting sites where they live, and room to grow. The harsh reality in ecosystems and within communities is that there are winners and losers. And when there's competition, the winner thrives and survives, and the loser simply fails to survive. And this is what we call the competitive exclusion principle. The competitive exclusion principle is basically the fact that no two species can occupy the same niche at the same habitat and at the same time. And a niche, which we'll look at in more detail in another video, is the organism's role or its job in that community. Because of competition, because of limited resource, only specific species or organisms are able to survive. One of the relationships that happen between organisms in a community is predation. It's the interaction where one organism captures and feeds on another organism. And so the predator is the organism that does the killing and the eating, and the prey is the food. In this example, you see a lion feeding on perhaps a gazelle or a zebra in one of the biomes in Africa. And so the lion is the predator, and the gazelle or the zebra is the prey. And really, predation is what determines the relationships in a food web. Predators have skills, really adaptations, that have allowed them to survive and be better suited for their environment. This, of course, happens through natural selection. Predators have better and more efficient tools that make them better predators. Snakes have heat-sensitive pits that allow them to locate their prey. They Other predators may have acute senses, fangs, claws, poison, stingers, and sharp teeth. Spiders have developed intricate webs to catch their prey and allow them to be better predators. You might be asking yourself, how in the world does any organism survive if predators have evolved these amazing skills to be the predators that they are? And there's many ways that our organisms survive. For some, it might be running faster and the ability to hide. Other organisms have developed mimicry, which is a form of deception that the prey use to defend themselves from being eaten. In this example, we have a king snake and a coral snake. The coral snake is extremely poisonous, and so many of its predators, they simply avoid it because they don't want to be bitten. The king snake is not poisonous at all, but it's developed a color pattern on its body that makes it look an awful lot like a coral snake, and so because of that, its common predators simply avoid it. Symbiosis is the general or overarching term that describes relationships between organisms. And there's 3 types of symbiotic relationships that we need to be familiar with. The first one is mutualism, the second one is commensalism, and the third one is parasitism. In mutualism, both species, different species of course, benefit from the relationship. In the example at the top here, the bird on the back of that antelope eats the ticks on the back of the antelope. Of course, the ticks provide food for the bird, and the bird is able to rid the antelope of these invasive ticks that could harm it. Flowers and insects have also developed a really cool relationship, a mutual relationship, where the flower provides the insect nectar, and the insect, as it feeds on the flower, gathers pollen on its face and proboscis, the part that goes into the flower, and it spreads it from plant to plant, allowing that plant to survive and reproduce by spreading the pollen around. Commensalism is the symbiotic relationship between 2 different species where one of the species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor helped. In this example here with the triggerfish is large. It's able to move large rocks as it feeds, and this creates opportunities for these smaller fish to get food in places where they wouldn't have normally been able to feed. And so it's a commensalism type of relationship. The last type of symbiotic relationship that we need to be familiar with is parasitism, and this is kind of a gross one we'd probably not want to talk about that much because of what parasites do to us. In the example on the right, we see a tapeworm. In parasitism, one of the species is helped or benefited greatly, while the other species is harmed. And with the tapeworm, if we get a tapeworm, it's great for the tapeworm because they feed on us inside of us. The problem, though, is that harms us by taking away our nutrition and physically harming us by destroying our cells and internal organs. The example here at the left, of course, is a type of flea. Again, they feed on us and they can spread disease and harm us if we're hosts. In Minnesota, of course, we think immediately about wood ticks, perhaps deer ticks that spread Lyme's disease, and even mosquitoes that feed on us at certain times of the year. Certainly at minimum, mosquitoes suck our blood and cause great irritation, but they can also spread disease as well. That ends our short screencast on communities, and remember, it's all about organisms within an area that have relationship to one another and the different types of relationships and how they interact and survive, and of course some die. Hope this helps. Good luck on this unit, and we'll talk to you soon.